It was a calm, sunny Sunday morning. Birds chirping, lawn sprinklers rhythmically clicking, the scent of fresh-cut grass hanging in the air. My neighborhood was the kind of place where everyone waved at each other, kept their hedges trimmed, and barbecues were considered sacred weekend rituals. I had just finished polishing my pride and joy, a crimson 2023 Porsche 911 Turbo S, a reward for years of grinding in the tech world, long nights building my startup from the ground up, and sleeping under my desk more times than I care to admit. This car wasn't just a machine. It was my milestone. Life was smooth, quiet, peaceful. That was before she moved in. 2 doors down came Karen, mid-50s, aggressively blonde with a voice that could shatter wine glasses and a glare that burned, holes through tempered glass. From the moment she arrived, she made herself known, complaining about trash bins left out too long, criticizing kids for chalk drawings on the sidewalk, and acting like the self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac. But nothing set her off quite like my Porsche. She hated how flashy it was, said it made the neighborhood look materialistic. I ignored her, until the day she strutted into my driveway, arms crossed and a smug look plastered on her face. "I'll give you $1 for it," she said, holding out a crumpled bill, like it was a golden ticket. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. When I told her no, her entire expression shifted, eyes narrowing, lips curling into a snarl. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "That car belongs to this community, not some show-off like you." And just like that, peace left the neighborhood. And Karen, she declared war. Karen didn't so much move in as she announced her arrival. A white Mercedes SUV pulled up to the house 2 doors down, blasting opera music loud enough to shake. Patio furniture. Out stepped a woman in her mid-50s wearing oversized sunglasses, pearl earrings that screamed, "Not real," and an air of superiority that didn't match the modest colonial-style home she was moving into. From day one, she made it her mission to improve the neighborhood, code for micromanaging everyone else's lives. She'd peek through her living room blinds like a hawk, watching people mow their lawns, timing how long trash bins sat by the curb, and muttering judgmental comments under her breath. You could almost hear the imaginary HOA badge clinking against her cardigan. Her obsession with my Porsche started almost immediately. One morning, as I was backing it out for a casual Sunday drive, I noticed her standing across the street, arms crossed, eyes locked on the car like it had personally offended her. "You know," she called out, her tone sugary and fake, "that thing is a bit much for this kind of neighborhood." I smiled politely. "It's a Porsche, not a rocket launcher." She forced a tight-lipped chuckle, then added, "It's just so loud. Some of us enjoy peace and quiet, and it sort of attracts the wrong crowd, don't you think?" Whatever that meant. Worse than her comments, though, was her son, Travis. 17, entitled and dumb enough to think no one was watching when he loitered around my driveway, circling the car like a vulture. I caught him trying to open the driver's side door once, claiming he just wanted to see the interior. I didn't make a scene yet, but I started recording things after that, because something told me this wasn't over. It was around 10 a.m. on a Thursday when the madness truly began. I was working from home that day, finishing up a quarterly report, when I noticed Karen marching down the sidewalk toward my house, with the determination of someone who'd just drafted legislation and was ready to enforce it. She wore her usual beige cardigan over a floral blouse, clutching a sheet of paper like it was a sacred document. Her heels clacked against the driveway as she approached, not even pretending this wasn't a confrontation. I stepped outside, coffee mug in hand, and met her halfway at the edge of my driveway. My Porsche gleamed behind me, freshly waxed, resting, peacefully like it always did when not in use. Karen didn't say hello. Instead, she shoved the paper toward me, a crumpled sheet of printer paper, handwritten in blue ink, complete with a signature line and a glitter pen border like a kid's school project. It read, "Agreement to sell vehicle, $1 100 in exchange for 2023 Porsche 911 Turbo S." I blinked. "What is this?" Her smile was tight. "An opportunity. for you to do the right thing. You're a man of the community, aren't you? I genuinely thought she was joking. I even chuckled. Wait, you want to buy my Porsche for $1? She nodded. It's just sitting here all the time. You don't need it. My son, Travis, just got his permit and he needs something reliable to learn responsibility. Something refined. This car is perfect for him. I looked at her like she had lost her mind, which, at this point, I was starting to believe. Karen, with all due respect, that car costs more than some houses. I'm not selling it. Certainly not for $1. Her smile vanished. Her jaw clenched and her nostrils flared like a kettle about to boil. You'll regret this, she snapped, taking the contract back and crumpling it in her fist. That car belongs in the hands of a real family, not some show-off with a midlife crisis and too much money. I just stood there, speechless, as she stormed off down the driveway, muttering under her breath. She didn't slam a door, but she might as well have. The battle lines were drawn. It didn't take long for the retaliation to begin. Just a week after I declined Karen's generous $1 offer for my Porsche, I received my first letter from the HOA. It was printed on thick, cream-colored paper like it was some kind of royal decree. The subject? Noise violation, excessive engine revving. Frowned. I hadn't even driven the car that day. Then came another notice 2 days later. Improper vehicle storage, blocking sidewalk access. That one was complete fiction. My car had never once touched the sidewalk. I parked it like a surgeon performs. An operation. Precise, clean, and within every rule. The final straw came when a letter accused me of reckless and unsafe driving within the neighborhood. Accompanying the complaint was a grainy, zoomed-in photo of my Porsche, barely recognizable. Taken at an odd angle, you could tell it had been snapped by someone hiding behind a bush, or more likely, behind their blinds. That's when it hit me. Karen. Who else had an axe to grind and nothing better to do? Who else had already proven she'd crossed the line to get her hands on my car? It all added up. The letters, the petty claims, the sudden scrutiny. I was being harassed and she was pulling the strings. I wasn't going to let this slide. I bought and installed a full camera system. Front yard, driveway, even a dash cam with motion sensors. If she wanted to play games, fine. But I'd have proof of every step she took. I also started a file. Printed every letter, every false claim, every time-stamped video. If Karen wanted to take this further, I'd be ready. Because now it wasn't just about a car. It was about principle. And Karen had just declared war on the wrong neighbor. It was a Saturday afternoon, one of those picture-perfect days where the sun hangs just right in the sky and the whole world seems quiet. I had just finished detailing the Porsche, again, because at this point it was more of a therapeutic ritual than a necessity. Then came the knock. No, not a knock. A bang. Rapid, aggressive, like she was trying to break the damn door down. I opened it cautiously, and there she was. Karen, clutching that same crumpled contract from before, the glitter pen now faded and smudged like her common sense. Her face was flushed, brows knitted tight, and her lips were pressed so thin they looked ready to vanish. "We need to talk," she snapped. I didn't say anything, just stepped onto the porch and shut the door behind me. I wasn't about to invite her inside. She jabbed the contract toward my chest. "This is your last chance. Sell me the car. You know it's just sitting there, wasting away. You don't deserve it." I laughed, quietly, but audibly enough, for her to take offense. "Karen, again, it's not for sale. Definitely not for $1. Her jaw clenched so hard I thought her fake pearls might pop off from the pressure. "If you don't sell me that car, I'm going to report you for harassment." My eyes narrowed. "Harassment? For not selling you my property?" "That's right," she said, smug now. "I've got records. You're threatening me, making me feel unsafe. That car is triggering. It's a symbol of aggressive masculinity, and I won't stand for it." I blinked, stunned by the sheer absurdity of it all. "Karen, you're weaponizing nonsense." She leaned in close, too close. "This is your final warning." Then she turned and stormed off, heels clicking on concrete, threats echoing behind. Her like a villain in a low-budget soap opera. And I had a sinking feeling she wasn't bluffing. It was supposed to be a peaceful afternoon. I was in my driveway, microfiber cloth in one hand, detail spray in the other, putting the finishing touches on my Porsche's fender. Music played softly from a Bluetooth speaker, and for a brief moment, it felt like things might finally settle down. Then came the sirens, not blaring but that distinct low whoop as two squad cars rolled slowly onto my quiet suburban street. My stomach dropped. Both cruisers pulled up directly in front of my house. I stepped back, cloth still in hand, as two officers got out, one male, one female, hands resting casually near their belts. And then I heard her voice. Karen. She came flying out from her front yard like a banshee with a mission, waving that crumpled contract like it was a holy writ. "That's him!" she shrieked. "That's the man who threatened me. He stole that. Ahar. I paid for it. He forged the paperwork." I stood frozen, not out of guilt but out of complete disbelief. The male officer approached me while the other tried to calm Karen down. I noticed she'd gone full dramatic, clutching her chest, faking trembles like she was auditioning for a daytime soap opera. "Sir," the officer said cautiously, "do you have any identification or proof of ownership for the vehicle?" "I do," I replied calmly. "Registration's in the garage. Also," I added, walking toward the house, "I've got full security footage of her harassing me, multiple times, including this morning." That caught his attention. A few minutes later, I returned with the registration, insurance documents, my ID, and a tablet loaded with camera footage, clear as day, showing Karen banging on my door, yelling, waving her contract, and threatening to report me. The officer flipped through everything, nodding slowly. Karen, still shouting from the sidewalk, looked increasingly unhinged. Finally, the officer sighed. "We can't arrest her," he muttered. "There's no physical threat and she hasn't technically trespassed. But we'll have a word with her. Just try to keep the peace." "Tell that to her," I said, pointing toward the shrieking neighbor. He gave me a sympathetic look and walked off. And just like that, Karen walked away without so much as a citation. But now I knew. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning. 3. Days after the cops were called, I got hit with the next wave of Karen's madness. It started with an email from the HOA. The subject line alone made me groan. Urgent, neighborhood concern, immediate action required. In the body, a formal notice wrapped in passive-aggressive language. We've received multiple complaints alleging noise disturbances, unsafe behavior, and aggressive confrontation stemming from your property. Please be advised that this community values harmony and respectful conduct. Continued violations may result in fines or further HOA action. I knew exactly who the multiple complaints were from. There weren't enough people in the whole neighborhood to fill a complaint box unless one person was submitting them on repeat. Still, I was stunned by how far she was willing to go. But it didn't stop there. The real kicker came the next morning, when a silver Toyota Camry pulled up to my house and out stepped a woman holding a mic and a camera guy trailing behind her. I stepped outside cautiously, heart already pounding. "Hi," she said, flipping her press badge. "I'm Marissa Klein with Channel 7 News. We've received a tip from a concerned resident about a local scam involving a high-value vehicle and a community dispute. Would you be willing to comment?" "Excuse me?" She held up a printout, a screenshot of a social media post made in the community group. Karen's post. In it, she claimed I lured her into a fake car deal, exploited her generosity, and then threatened her when she tried to resolve the misunderstanding. There was even a blurry photo of the $1 contract attached, captioned with proof. It was so surreal I almost laughed. I declined the interview and walked them off my property. I didn't need my face plastered on the evening news under the headline "Local Man Scams Widow Over Supercar." But the damage was done. Rumors were flying, whispers around the block, neighbors peeking over their fences. People who used to wave now gave hesitant nods. That same evening, I got another violation notice from the HOA, this time for creating disturbances leading to community unrest. It was clear now. Karen wasn't just trying to get my car anymore. She was trying to break me, financially, legally, reputationally, any way she could. If she couldn't take the Porsche by force, she'd try to corner me until I had no choice but to give it up, or leave entirely. That night, I sat in my office, eyes scanning every complaint letter, every HOA email, every time-stamped video, and I started planning, because if Karen wanted a war, I was going to give her one, not loud. Not messy, strategic, surgical, and devastating. When someone tries to ruin your life over a car they can't afford, you've got two options: cave in or fight back with precision. I chose the latter. The first thing I did was consult a lawyer, Daniel. Harper, a friend of a friend and the kind of guy who wore a Rolex and smiled like a shark. After a single glance at the printed HOA complaints, the police incident report, and the blurry contract Karen kept parading around, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You've got her right where you want her." Within an hour, we had drafted a formal cease and desist letter. It outlined her repeated harassment, the false police report, defamation attempts, and the manufactured HOA complaints. We included references to relevant state statutes, enough legal weight to make even a seasoned grifter sweat. Daniel said, if she didn't stop immediately, we'd pursue a restraining order and a defamation lawsuit, but I wasn't stopping there. I started talking to my neighbors, the ones who had grown quiet since the news crew came around. I expected skepticism or awkward silences. Instead, I got confessions. Apparently, Karen had been busy before she fixated on me. One neighbor, Linda, told me Karen accused her teenage daughter of operating a prostitution ring just because the girl had a few friends over after school. Another, Mr. Ramos, said Karen called animal control on his seeing-eye dog because it looked dangerous. Then came the big one. Jerry, a retired police officer who lived across the street. He told me Karen had once accused his visiting nephew, an off-duty firefighter, of stalking her because he parked his truck on the curb. She's a chronic liar with a God complex, Jerry said. If this goes to court, I'll testify, happily. Suddenly, I wasn't alone. I had backup, legal ammo, witnesses, a reputation worth defending. Karen wanted to play games. She had no idea I had just suited up for war. It was late one night, when I received an alert from my security system. The cameras outside my house had detected movement near my driveway. I quickly pulled up the footage, and there it was, Karen's son, sneaking around my Porsche with a crowbar in hand. He was clearly trying to pry open the door, his face partially obscured by a hood. I couldn't believe my eyes. After all the tension with Karen, her son was the last person I expected to do something like this. I immediately called the police and reported the attempted theft, providing the footage as evidence. They arrived quickly, and after reviewing the security footage, they arrested him on the spot. The satisfaction of seeing him in handcuffs, escorted away from my property, was a moment I wouldn't forget. The police assured me that the case was solid, and I thought that would be the end of it. But of course, Karen wasn't going to let it slide quietly. The very next day, she stormed into my yard, her voice shrill with outrage. "You set him up," she yelled, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "You invited him to break into your car. You wanted this to happen. You planned it." I stared at her, incredulous. It was clear she was trying to spin the narrative in her favor, painting herself as the victim and accusing me of orchestrating the entire thing. But there was no hiding the truth. The security footage was irrefutable, and the police weren't buying her wild claims. Karen was desperate, but her attempt to twist the situation only made her look more delusional. The HOA meeting room fell into a stunned silence as I laid out my case. I started with the video footage, carefully chosen to highlight every detail. The incident at my driveway, Karen's aggressive confrontation with my daughter in her wheelchair, the numerous times she had tried to incite conflict. The footage spoke volumes, clear and undeniable. Next, I presented the harassment log, each entry meticulously documented over the past several months. I read aloud the dates and times when Karen had come to my door with baseless complaints, how she had intimidated my family, and how her behavior escalated. The room was still, even the board members seemed to shift in their seats. I then handed over the police report. It detailed the official response to Karen's threats and the investigation that had been conducted. The officers had found no merit to her claims, making it clear that her actions had been unjust and malicious. The room remained deathly quiet, tension hanging thick in the air, but the real bombshell came last. Testimonies from my neighbors. One by one, they stepped forward, sharing their own experiences with Karen. Her harassment wasn't just personal to me, it was a pattern of disruptive behavior, and they had all witnessed it firsthand. Each word added weight to my argument. Karen could barely contain herself. Her face twisted in fury, and before anyone could stop her, she began shouting accusations, wild, incoherent rants about how she was being targeted. Her voice echoed through the room, but no one seemed to care. The board wasted no time. They suspended her HOA privileges, effective immediately, and fined her for the false complaints and harassment. The satisfaction that flooded through me was indescribable, as Karen's face turned a deep shade of red, and she stormed out, defeated. Public humiliation. The moment I uploaded the video of Karen's 911 call to the neighborhood Facebook group, I knew there was no turning back. It wasn't just the absurdity of her call that had me laughing. It was the complete meltdown she had, the way she painted herself as a victim when the truth was staring her in the face. The audio captured her hysterical rants as she claimed I was violating her rights, making accusations that didn't make sense. It was, in a word, comedy gold. As the video began to load, I felt a sense of satisfaction welling up inside me. This was the final piece of the puzzle, the one thing I could do to show everyone just who Karen really was. I knew the video would spread like wildfire. After all, Karen had spent so long making life difficult for the neighbors. Now it was time for the community to see the real Karen, the one behind the exaggerated complaints and fake drama. Within hours, the video had gone viral. The first wave of comments came from familiar faces, neighbors who had been too afraid to speak up before. They shared their own stories of Karen's behavior, how she had intimidated them, or tried to stir trouble in the community. The video, paired with these stories, turned into an explosive commentary on her manipulative tactics. And, of course, the memes started rolling in. People couldn't resist making fun of her increasingly out-of-control behavior. The funniest part was seeing the online reactions from people who weren't even in the neighborhood. The video had spread beyond our little circle, and it was being shared, reshared, and commented on in various forums. Karen's 911 call was now a viral joke. I watched in real time as the comments flooded in, mocking her for everything from her tone to her nonsensical accusations. "Is this real life?" one comment read. Another said she needs to take a chill pill, or at least a reality check. It didn't take long before the HOA board sent out a quiet apology to me through their newsletter. They didn't make it public, but it was clear they were trying to distance themselves from the mess Karen had created. The apology was carefully worded, acknowledging that they had failed to see the full picture when they sided with her. It was a subtle but significant move, one that said they were trying to make amends without making too much noise. They knew they couldn't ignore the tide of public opinion. As for Karen, her attempts to save face only made things worse. She posted desperate rebuttals on the Facebook group, but it was too late. The damage was done. The community had spoken, and it was unanimous. Karen was no longer a figure of authority in our neighborhood. With Karen's reputation already in ruins, I took the next step in ensuring she faced consequences for her harassment. My lawyer sent her a formal harassment claim, outlining the extensive record of her behavior, from the false complaints to the defamation, the intimidation, and the emotional toll it had all taken. The legal documents were airtight, filled with evidence, and it was clear that Karen had no defense for her actions. She didn't take long to respond. Instead of fighting back in court, she chose to settle quickly, hoping to avoid a public trial that would only further tarnish her already destroyed image. My lawyer and I negotiated terms that included a significant monetary settlement. I wasn't just after the money. I wanted to ensure Karen learned a hard lesson, one she couldn't escape. The settlement was steep enough to hit her where it hurt, her pride and her bank account. Karen, the woman who had once looked down on everyone in the neighborhood, now had to face the reality of her situation. The financial burden of the settlement weighed heavily on her, and she was forced to sell her luxury car, the same car she had flaunted as a symbol of her superiority. The car had been her pride and joy, a reflection of the image she tried, so hard to project, but now it was gone, sold to cover the legal costs she had incurred from harassing me. It was almost poetic. She had spent so long trying to control and belittle everyone around her, but in the end, it was her own greed and arrogance that brought her down. As she lost the car she loved, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. The universe had a way of balancing things out, and Karen was finally paying the price for all the harm she had caused. A few months passed, and the neighborhood had finally settled back into a peaceful rhythm. Karen had grown increasingly reclusive, avoiding everyone she once commanded with her loud voice and domineering presence. Then, one day, a moving truck appeared outside her house. No fanfare, no confrontation, just boxes, furniture, and a sense of finality. She was gone. It was almost anticlimactic, but the community had already been through too much drama to care about her departure. Still, the neighborhood felt like it had taken its first real breath in a long time. For the first time in ages, it was truly peaceful. To celebrate, the neighborhood organized a BBQ. It was an informal gathering, a chance to reconnect and enjoy each other's company without the shadow of Karen looming over us. People were laughing, cooking, and reminiscing about the madness that had unfolded. The tension that once hung thick in the air was now replaced with a lightness that was hard to ignore. I parked my Porsche right at the front and center of the event, just enough to make a statement, but not too ostentatious to come off as boastful. The car, which had once been a target of Karen's envy and mockery, now represented something more. It was a symbol of my resilience, of how I had survived her attempts to break me. As I stood there, surrounded by neighbors who had finally found their peace, I overheard someone comment, "She thought $1 could buy my silence. Instead, it bought her downfall." It was a quiet, almost poetic moment, and I knew then that the price Karen had paid wasn't just monetary. It had cost her everything, her car, her pride, her reputation, and in the end, it was her own greed and arrogance that led to her undoing. The community had come together, stronger than ever, and I stood at the heart of it, knowing I had played a part in making sure Karen's reign of terror was finally over. Looking back, it's clear that power and entitlement never mix well. Karen had spent so much of her life believing that her status, her wealth, and her manipulation could shield her from the consequences of her actions. She thought that by bullying others into submission, she could carve out her own little kingdom. But when people finally stood up to her, when they refused to cower or allow her to dictate the rules, everything she had built came crashing down. Her sense of superiority evaporated because, in the end, real power lies in integrity, not arrogance. Standing up for yourself, even in the face of absurdity, is crucial. There will always be people who think they can push you around, who believe their position gives them the right to treat you however they want. But letting those moments of injustice slide only enables them. Standing up, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when the odds are stacked against you, isn't just about protecting yourself in that moment. It's about sending a message that you're not afraid to fight for what's right. It's about preserving your dignity and showing that you won't let anyone trample over your rights or your peace of mind. As life returned to its normal rhythm, there was a sense of closure in the air. The tension that had once clouded the neighborhood had lifted, and people once again felt safe and free. But I wasn't taking any chances. I had learned that sometimes safety requires more than just good intentions. It requires preparation. I installed an upgraded security system just in case. Not out of fear, but out of caution. A small reminder that while I had emerged victorious, I was never going to let anyone threaten my peace again.